Hello, everyone. I have to say that for 25-year-olds, you look very young. So welcome back. My name is Sanjay Sharma. I am a professor here at MIT in engineering, and I'm also the vice president for open learning. And what that means is that I run all the MOOCs, the massive open online courses, open courseware, et cetera. I've been at MIT less time than you've been gone. I've been here for 21 years. So you folks predate me, but I know many of you. Welcome back. Our panel today is about IoT, and we have some really fantastic guests whom I will get to talk. You'll get to talk to in a minute. But we want to keep this very lightweight and very fast. So I'm not going to introduce anyone. I'm not going to say much more about myself. I just want to speak about IoT. We'll get going with that. And then I'll ask Yechiel, Damien, and Frank to say a few words about what their thoughts are on IoT. So first of all, just by way of history, so my involvement in this began in 1998 with radio frequency ID, RFID. In fact, modern RFID comes out of a lab I created along with others called the Auto ID Lab at MIT. And last year, there were 10 billion UHF RFID tags out there, and it is only the beginning. You know, your toll passes, all that stuff is going to go to our standard. And if it doesn't work, blame someone else, okay? Not me. No, you should blame me. But I want to give you the story of IoT. So in those days, in the heady days of RFID, we were trying to put RFID tags on everything, right? Because the problem with the barcode is its line of sight. RFID, I can just almost by, it's sort of like I can read inventory without seeing it, right? It's like telepathy, right? So it's useful for inventory control. That's why it's taking off. But people used to ask us, and this was also the early days of the internet, and we used to say, look, you can put RFID readers everywhere and track inventory over the internet in a warehouse in Arizona. People didn't believe that the internet was going to take off. 1998. I'd hold up my old Motorola brick phone, point at it and say, trust me, one day this will be on the internet. And people thought, oh, these MIT guys, they're crazy. Okay, so that's how we started going. Then eventually we turned it into a marketing campaign, really. And a gentleman by the name of Kevin Ashton at MIT, he was a P&G guy who was a research scientist visiting me from Procter & Gamble. He said, why don't we just call it the Internet of Things? So that was 1998. I hated it. This is marketing, it's crap. I don't want to put my name on it. Anyway, it took off, and now we have IoT, right? So decades later, when we look at IoT, it's sort of, you got to ask yourself, what is IoT? Is it a platform? No. Is it a technology? Yeah, sort of. What does that mean? Is it a product? Can you go buy IoT? You know, can a company CEO go and say, I'm going to buy IoT? You can't do that, right? So what is IoT? So I'm going to say just a few words about it, my point of view, and then we'll speak to our panelists as well. Actually, to me, IoT is a new design language, right? It is a language for reframing something we do today in a totally different way. And to me, the first pure IoT company was actually started by an MIT alumna. Do you know what that is? Robin Chase, Zipcar. Here's why. How do rentals work today? Car rentals. All the cars are parked in a gigantic lot. You go to the office, they give you the keys. The moment you have IoT, you don't need those damn keys anymore. And there's no reason to put the cars together. The cars can be distributed around the city. They can be in a parking lot right next to your house, because the keys can be manipulated with something mobile. So the moment the need for putting the cars together, for looking at mileage, for example, you can do that IoT, right? You can unlock your car using IoT. What they did was what I consider true Internet of Things, business and technology co-transformation. They invented a business that was not possible before IoT. So to me, they are the pioneers. And they did this before that term existed, around the same time, 1998, 1999. So to me, IoT is a design language which lets you think about something that you took for granted in a totally different way, unencumbered by constraints that are baked into our thinking from years of struggling with technology. In fact, it is my view that we've reached a new era in technology. How many of you have heard of the Gartner hype cycle? Okay. Gartner hype cycle. The basic idea is, any new technology, there's a lot of hype, and then there's a trough of despair, and then you come out. So here's my new article that I've been writing for the last year and haven't finished. But the Gartner hype cycle is going through a hype cycle. Okay, I'm getting pretty meta here. So here's the basic idea. Take self-driving cars, right? Hype cycle, it's supposed to crash. It hasn't crashed yet, right? So Tesla had an accident. We thought it would crash. No, it just kept going along. And actually one of our companies, which was involved in that, Mobileye, got acquired, an Israeli company, for $15 billion by Intel. So the hype cycle hasn't happened. It's sort of going along. Why is that? So my final comment is because of unbelievable convergence. So here's the story. So when the crash happened, when the Tesla, accident happened, they were using optical cameras, right? Tesla sort of based on that. In any other era, because that was the only way to do it, you'd have had some sort of a dip, and then things that are self-righted. But what's happened is convergence, because it's not just optical cameras. You can use LiDAR today. You can use radar. You can use ultrasound. So there's so many ways to skin the cat. That something that should do this is sort of doing this and then recovering. And to me, one of the great things about IoT is IoT combined with machine learning, combined with all the other technologies out there, they're all converging into something very special. So for example, I would argue that Uber is an IoT company. Why? Because the smartphone is this magic wand of IoT. You put it in a car, and suddenly the system knows where the car is, right? And the driver is simply an automaton, sort of following instructions. Why is Uber doing self-driving cars? Because they can get rid of the driver. And then it's pure IoT with machine learning and all the other stuff pulled in, right? So we are in an era of great convergence. And IoT, to me, is just a design language. In fact, all these things are new verbs and new nouns we did not know 10 years ago. I'll leave this final thought with you. Imagine if through a time warp, someone in 1990 saw two teenagers say to each other, I am going to WhatsApp my location to you. And you had to explain to that person in 1990 through the wormhole what the hell that means. You would have to convince them. First of all, there's this thing called the internet, this thing called wireless connectivity. Those big boxes that go on boats, GPS, can fit inside this thing. The maps of the world can fit inside this thing. This is connected. Every teenager owns one. There's this thing called social networking, right? There was a company called WhatsApp, which was acquired by Facebook for $19 billion. Oh, we'll tell you about Facebook later, right? And that's what it means when one teenager says to another, I will WhatsApp my location to you. That is our era. So with that, I'm very pleased to introduce our speakers. We're going to do something we're doing more and more at MIT, flipped classrooms, which means if you want to learn more about them, read the bios on paper, okay, or online. But I'm going to ask each of my colleagues on the panel to say just a couple of words, 2 or 3 minutes, what they do and what they're excited about, 2 things that excite them about IoT, and 1 thing that worries them about IoT. I've already told you about what excites me. My big worry is security. We'll talk more about it later. So with that, Yechiel Engelhard.
Okay, so they're supposed to read my bio? I'm supposed to tell them about my bio?
You just talk to them about what you do, and 2 good things and 1 thing that concerns you.
So I come from healthcare. I practiced medicine for a couple of years. Came to MIT in 2010. I'm an MBA grad 2012. Opened a company back then for chronic disease focused on respiratory disease like asthma and COPD, connecting different devices and helping patients, the doctors and the industry. Short enough? Good. Things I'm excited about. So since I'm coming from this industry and I'm now heavily involved with the pharmaceutical industry as part of the acquisition of our company, I'm very excited to see how all the industry, like the pharma and hospital, are becoming more and more connected finally in a meaningful way, both on the kind of the more consumer side and also on the kind of the back end side, like how labs are being connected, how the research start to use IoT and so on. So this is what I'm excited. Worried, I'd say two things that worried me. One, again, in healthcare, regulatory, the regulator like the FDA specifically and other regulation are very slow to adapt an IoT, even though it's around for 20 years. For them, it's still something that is the far future. And unfortunately, we see a lot of regulatory blocks for this kind of progress. And the other part is that I'm worried about is the business behind it. Again, specifically for healthcare, specifically for pharmaceutical industries, the IoT is there. We already see some very, very promising signs, but the business behind it, the real money behind it is still not clear.
So let me ask you, Yechiel, and I realized I screamed through the whole presentation. The mic was on, I apologize. But just want to ask you, is the regulation, is it across the world? Is it more in certain countries? Are some countries overreacting?
So if I need to summarize, I said each country has their own unique problems. There is really no country there are some countries, but those are this is not a place where you start to do business just because of margins and other questions. But every place where, that's, from growth markets to Europe to US, there is unique problems, specifically for IoT, that we see right now that block a lot of those progress.
Got it. Damien, why don't you talk a little bit about Damien Balsan is from Samsung. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm from a unit of Samsung called Samsung Pay. In fact, originally I'm an entrepreneur. My company was called Lupe, was acquired 2 years ago by Samsung. And now we drive the Samsung mobile wallet, which essentially is your ability to use your phone to pay, but pay anywhere at any payment device using a special technology that is not the technology that Apple is using, which would be NFC, but is using magnetic induction, which allows you to pay at any magnetic terminal. So essentially, this is my card, and I can pay at any reader by presenting my phones. And right now, there's about 50 million phones from Samsung in the US that enable to do this. Originally, I came to MIT in 2002. I did my thesis around mobile wallets and about mobile payment, thinking that it would happen in the next 3 years. So it took a little bit more time. In fact, right now, it's just starting to happen. So 3 startups later, pretty much, my first startup was about mobile payment. I was a semi-finalist at the MIT 50K. It was not even the 100K. It didn't work that well, but I learned so much. Visa was an investor in our company, fired us. We did another one. And then the third one was really the right one. Visa came back as an investor, and then Samsung came back and then kind of acquired us. And I did that with a lot of MIT also entrepreneurs and alumni. So I'm very, very grateful to MIT. And so really my perspective on IoT obviously is payment. What I'm fascinated about IoT is that really the consumer's appetite to use connected devices to pay for things and buy for things in a seamless way. Because IoT is all about seamless experience. It's just making things very simple, very easy, very quick. With the multiplication of devices, the number of use cases is just incredible. Think about paying for gas right now. Why do you have to get out of your car, take a card, swipe a card? I mean, right now, and that's kind of one of the things I'm doing with Samsung Pay is enable you with your card to stop at a gas station, the right gas stations, get your loyalty card loaded, and just fill. Without having to do anything else, and then leave the station. So that's kind of one of the kind of use cases on payment. Other use case we're working with Samsung is automatic fridges. So we have Samsung fridges. Samsung is #1 in smartphone, but also in lots of other things like home appliances. So we're doing smart fridges that can reorder automatically food, with a simple camera that is in the fridge. In fact, it's a very, very interesting solution we did with MasterCard. So there are lots of other fascinating use cases, but it's all going after the ease of payment, the consumer wanting to do things that they don't forcibly like. I mean, not everybody likes shopping. I mean, it's interesting to shop, but But in fact, there was a recent study by Visa and Payments.com, just studied today on 3,000 US consumers, showing that 60% of people, in fact, don't like shopping. It's not like you don't like shopping, you like shopping, but the fact of having to shop like 4 or 5 times a week, I mean, sometimes why? I mean, it's just loss of time. And there's so much friction into this. So the fascinating things about that is like, how can we simplify the experience? That said, obviously, the question goes back to things that we really don't like, or are if we make it that easy, what are the limitations? So obviously security. How many people are using Starbucks application here? I mean, like, I'm just trying to check, right? How many have auto pay in the Starbucks application? So a lot of people, right?
How many mobile order ahead of time?
Yeah. How many people are using mobile order ahead? That same thing, right? So it's just great. It's so easy. On the other hand, it's just the fact that you're auto-paying, automatically. I mean, it's scary too, right? So you really want to make sure that you are who you say you are, that you're rightly authenticated. There's a security. So there are hardware requirements that need to be set up. There's standards that need to be set up. There's a whole experience that need to be set up. If not, it's just not going to work. But that said, right now, all we're trying to do is this auto-pay function, type mechanism, type use cases on all kind of additional devices. And I could give you 10s or 20s of other use cases that that I think are spreading up, pretty fast.
Terrific, Damien. Our commencement speaker, as you know, was your competitor.
Yes.
But I knew I was going to hang out with you, so I didn't talk to him. I just avoided him. Frank?
So,
I should say Frank Gillett is from Forrester. We've performed together before, and he has a very nice holistic view of the whole industry.
thank you, Sanjay. So I'm an industry analyst at Forrester Research. So we are part of a group of companies who are analysts, interpreters, and guides for understanding how technology can be used to transform and improve your customer experience, even for industrial companies, so not just consumer companies. So our customers buy a subscription to read the research, and then some choose to do additional consulting with us. But the primary thing we do is write research reports and give guidance and thought leadership. I've been focused on the Internet of Things now for 3.5 years, and my foundation in engineering, graduate school at MIT and Sloan, and the technology and policy program have proved to be really, really useful for understanding the rich, complex ways that technology changes how we think, the way we work, and what it takes, in fact, to change how you work in order to take full advantage of technology and uncover the new opportunities. So when I look at the Internet of Things, first and foremost, I'm really excited about how having sensors in the physical world can inform software in the digital world to make it so much easier to get work done, and more importantly, to increase customer satisfaction. So what we were talking about here about collecting that context, experiences can be so much more intuitive. Like the gas station example you gave, Amazon is now experimenting with a store, so far open only to employees, where you literally walk in, pick up the things you want, put them in your basket, and walk out. And between interacting with your phone and sensors in the store, they know what you've picked up. Now, I have to say, for a long, long time, I'm going to be stopping at the door and looking at the list to see if it matches what's in my basket. And I still do that, honestly, with traditional checkout. So that sort of sensing and remote control between the physical and the digital world is incredibly exciting. The second thing I'm excited about is the potential that creates for how our financial and individual relationship is with assets. So Robin Chase, a neighbor of mine whom I knew that way, not through Sloan, here in Cambridge, changed the idea of car ownership. She said, look, if you live in a dense area where we can put our cars, why would you fiddle with the hassle of owning a car that you drive occasionally? Just pay per use by the hour, gas and insurance included. So when you do a Zipcar, how many of you have done Zipcar or some other form of car sharing? All right, cool. So it's kind of crazy to get in a car, go driving, pull into a gas station, pay with somebody else's card, and just keep going. But it works great. So now take that idea and stretch it to industrial air compressors, or vacuum cleaners, or hand tools, or the big chiller on the roof of your building that chills your building. Think about how many assets that you own in your personal life or that your business uses that you're not expert at taking care of. Wouldn't it be simpler if you just pay for hours of cooled air and someone else worried about when to replace it, how to maintain it, how to keep it at peak performance, and what the best economic time to replace it was? So those become possible. I'm not saying it will make sense in every case, but rethinking the whole way that you deal with assets, whether you carry them on the books, whether they become somebody else's problem, it's another version of some of the outsourcing innovations we've seen so far. Now, concerns. It's easy to pick security, and so I'm glad someone else already picked it. For me, the subtext of it is really it's the identity of the object, which is the foundation of security. So what I'm going to pick is the incredibly complex challenge of embracing the rich possibilities of the Internet of Things. It's like the Internet itself. It isn't like, say, the individual technology waves that we've been thinking about with mobile or cloud or big data, where it feels like a defined technology with a more specific way of using it. It's really a broad, rich set of possibilities and technologies that is incredibly challenging to look at and figure out how it applies in your personal life and in your company's use. So it is more challenging than anything we've confronted since the Internet itself, and you can see how long that's taken, and I argue it's harder than that.
I agree. You know, by the way, how many of you think you're already in the Internet of Things? How many of you think? Yeah. Do you own an object that is connected, not your phone, but do you think like your car and things like that are in the Internet of Things? Do you think so? Let me say that. Go ahead, Frank.
Well, I was going to ask for a show of hands. So think about stuff in your home that is not a personal computing device that is specific to a person, but rather it's in a thing. And how many of you have 10 or more such things in your home right now? Wow. 5? Or more. 5 or more, yeah. 1 or more? Actually, no, let's go the other way. Who doesn't have something in their home that is internet connected but not a phone, tablet, or computer? Okay, so we've got a few people. And so, yeah, a flip phone I wouldn't count. So Sanjay, just to spice it up, I don't think Uber is IoT.
Go ahead, tell me why.
So if the sensor is inside a phone, that's mobile.
Okay.
It's only when the sensor is its own device connected indirectly through the phone or directly on its own to the internet that I believe we're truly exploring Internet of Things.
I'll concede that. Yeah, that's an easy concession for me to make.
Now an interesting one also is, well, gee, if RFID is RFID Internet of Things itself, because it doesn't have compute or storage or connectivity of its own, it responds to something else that is connected.
Yeah, RFID is the sensee. Yechiel, you were going to say something.
I'll disagree because I mean we are, we try today to put as many sensors on the phone itself because it's just available.
Yes.
So you start to put stuff that before maybe was a standalone sensors now as part of the machine that you hold. So this is one. The second is that you use the phone as a bridge to so many.
Oh, phone as a bridge is really, really important.
So then the question is, where is the bridge? Where is actually the sensor itself? So I mean, maybe it was true before.
Well, so the smartphone is a great IoT sensor on the person who uses it. But because it goes with the person, it's not specific to a thing or a place.
Yeah. Damien, you were going to say
something?
Well,
I mean, the way I see it, and is I really make a bridge between the connected home and the connected me, right? So the connected me is anything that is linked. It would be a sensor for like a Fitbit or something that will bring health data. Could be on a watch, could be on a ring, could be on anything. It will just send data, but it's really linked to me. Then the connected home, and essentially it's half and half. Like more or less in the study, I'm really encouraging you to go at payments.com/Visa, published last week. It's very, very well explained in terms of use cases. It's sometimes very different types of people, where the connected home is really around all the appliances that can connect, in fact, to your smartphone. So think about the explosion right now on the Amazon Echo devices. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. Or their Google equivalent, or all the others. Even Samsung is coming up with something called Bixby. But it's a totally different type of markets. But it's just growing. I mean, so fast. It's just really
I mean, I think the Echo is amazing for what it's done, right?
Right. But the connected me, side of things is kind of potentially more interesting, because now you're just attaching this to all kind of additional data, just to increase your performance in sports or increase your health. It's just another family of use cases for Internet of Things.
So sort of picking up on Yechiel's point, to me, the cell phone is a place where we put all the sensors. And
as many as you can.
Then
Why
we went
not
to
take
wearables,
advantage?
right? But the next thing, I mean, in 5 years, you won't be able to buy a tennis racket that doesn't come home and yammer at you at how badly you played. Okay, that's our future. Or a golf club that your swing, you could work on that. But with that in mind, Yechiel, you talked about the business case, right? Where is that coming from in your industry?
So as you said, I mean, I think that today for the healthcare industry, it started to be clear that everything's going to be connected. As you said, it wasn't clear for years. Now that we start to understand that every device we use at home, every medication we take, every basically even different drugs that we will take after we swallow them, it started to be clear that it's all going to be connected, and we start to have those amount of information. It's almost intuitive to think, this information is going to help us to have a better patient. We're going to have a healthier patient. We can have better healthcare management thanks to this information. But it's not clear. So first it's not clear how much this adding value. So you can basically quantify, so this is the amount of value I'm adding by adding this amount of sensors and data. So this is how much I'm going to pay for it, and this is who is going to pay for it. And the second is actually if there is real value in this point. So we are in a point right now that I think that we are going to see a huge change in the next 5 years, where we're still not sure we know what to do with this amount of information. And surprisingly, in the last 2-3 years, there are more and more publications that shows that the adding of more kind of quantifying me sensors on the human body and more information coming from different sensors in the hospital didn't show real impactful change that is big enough for the industry to start making changes in the costs and in the pricing around how much you're willing to pay for a patient. So this is both a problem for consumer side. So even patients that are willing to provide more out of their pocket, it's not clear how much we're willing to pay for what, because we don't see the benefits. And from the payer side, where you expect to see this benefit, I would say before any other place, because they can see cost benefit, they can save on their kind of change the risk profile of patients. Even there, it's not clear in this point how much you can actually, what is the dollar sign on top of it. So you will see this entire industry right now. There is a lot of interesting companies, a lot of innovation around it. There is really very hard to find a huge success. When I say huge, that's someone that really changed the industry and not just create another incremental kind of value to what we see.
So it's a bit of a tragedy of the commons. And by the way, please, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. Or if you have comments, want to tell a joke, anything. But it's a tragedy of the commons where the value is so distributed that for no single silo does it make sense to make the leap. That's sort of what you're talking about, right? So there was a question. Let's start with, yes, sir.
Well, you've mentioned security, but I'd like to hear more about how, when everything is connected with everything, then our enemies with cyber warfare can shut down the entire country.
Yeah, last year in December of 2016, the Ukrainian electric grid went down, and it's thought to be the Russians. And as you know, Stuxnet brought down the Iranian nuclear establishment. In my view, the next war will be fought without a single bullet fired. I think country A will just bring down the infrastructure of country B.
But you're not convinced that there can be methods to prevent that?
I think that we're doing a lot of stupid things right now. I think a lot of implementations are really thoughtless. And unfortunately, it's going to take, in my view, a couple of disasters for people to wake up to it. But that's a little depressing. So I'm happy to talk about that after, but I have depressing views. So I'll maybe ask for another question. Gentlemen? There you go. Thoughts?
What I will say is it's interesting how Apple and a few other vendors have really tried to prioritize security as built in, but most don't. And at the bottom is that thing I talked about earlier, the identity of the device. Apple apparently has gotten confident enough that they just announced this week that you can be a HomeKit device, that is a smart home device in their universe, without having their specific silicon in it. And I haven't yet had a chance to dig into how they're doing that, but up until this point, the belief was that you had to put unique identity in the chip at the factory in order to have a fighting chance of maintaining unique identity and therefore security of the device. So I'm going to be watching this. I'm not a security expert, but I have colleagues at Forrester who help me watch that. I think what I've not yet seen nearly enough work on is resilient failure. That is, ensuring that things can still work when there is interference, and getting better at detecting things. So the first level, by the way, you will see coming into your homes starting this year. There was the rise in the last year or two of mesh Wi-Fi or home Wi-Fi systems. That's quickly moving to effectively a whole network control layer. The Eero, E-E-R-O, was the early device in this space. Now the Comcast X-Fi software service and the Norton Core device are examples of attempts to completely rethink an understanding of how things are connected in your home, how you monitor the behavior. And with the X-Fi software, which is rolled out to people who already have their best gateway, I now can group together devices according to the person or the function in my household and see how much traffic they're generating. I get notices now when something new joins the network in my home.
Do you have a teenager?
I have two.
Okay, so that's where all the traffic's coming from.
Actually, some of it comes in the middle of the night, and it's my backup devices running. So anyway, interesting topic, but let's keep moving.
The way as a hardware provider, obviously, is Samsung is making sure that all these IoT devices connect back to the phone. There's a double authentication, and Samsung has a kind of platform called Knox that is pretty much the foundation right now. As the mobile wallet, we built everything into that platform. And the latest phones, for instance, now allows you to iris scan. So you have very strong biometrics. So I have now iris scan to just simply open my phone. I don't need to go and enter something. So there's always kind of ways to to go around, but it's kind of getting much more difficult. And the foundation is that we're getting back to that devices and adding the security both in the chips and the.
My view is that you guys, the Googles, Nests of the world at Samsung, you're doing a good job within your walled gardens, but our attack surface is increasing more rapidly than our defenses are increasing, ma'am.
Yeah, I have a question. Beyond the security issue, the privacy issue, so there is an uneasiness, uncertainty about, okay, you collected my data about me. So how do I know that you are not going to use it in an unauthorized or misuse?
You can be assured you're going to use it in a bad
So from the now that's a policy aspects. Now, right now, if you look at the policies around data use, sort of like antique in the sense that it was developed in the paper-based economy. What do you do with those policies? You just ignore and go ahead, or is it what kind of or is it technology? This is another case where technology is way ahead than the policy aspects.
Maybe Yechiel, you're prime to answer this.
No, so first, I mean, I think it's all connected. What we said before to what you said about the stupidity of things that we do right now. I think there is some benefit by the fact that we have so much kind of it's so easy today to get into this, and there are so many companies now that we see just creating sensors without any security around them. But at least it brought the price that low that now everyone can connect everything, so we can see how things are moving really fast forward, and then we'll pay for it at some point. But at least we learn more, we experience, we start to create this social acceptance, which I think is so important for something like this. And connect what you ask. There is also the question of security and privacy really comes in different levels, right? So this technology is communicating in so many different levels, from machine to machine, and then you have the data management, and going back to some of the machines in those kind of systems, and the security can be an issue in each one of those layers. specifically from what we learn, I mean, this is just from kind of a social acceptance, is that people are still not fully understand the ability of hacking into the sensors themselves. And they still understand, the software part. So they understand that on their phone there is the data now someone can hack into it, or there is some cloud that someone can hack. So in this sense, if we are, we still not see the problem with educating people about how security are, our device versus what you can find in the industry, which I think we'll start seeing difference between kind of, the protocols and companies that really care about it versus the protocols that comes from cheap sensors and devices. Regarding the actual, what we're going to do with this, I mean, so in healthcare, it's a problem again. It's a blessing and it's a curse, because I mean we are treating this information coming from the sensors exactly the same way we are treating the data that come from patients. So with same levels of security and same protocols around privacy. So there is really no question there. But again, because we are treating it exactly the same, which I personally don't think we should, because a lot of those data is completely useless without the context, and you have the ability to separate it and provide value even without the context. So let's have different layer of privacy, different layer of security. Currently, it's a big bucket, I guess, in healthcare. And yeah, I mean, and you can I can tell you at least in healthcare, I'm sure it's in banking and payment, all those point of data that comes from the sensors are treated exactly the same as something that comes from your electronic health records.
So, in other words, worry. So your worries are justified.
Always worried, right? I mean,
Only the paranoid survive.
As you said, like 20 years ago, we all knew that this is going to happen, right? And we all, if those people that understood that every piece of data that is there is going to be available. So it's just a question of in what point society will start giving this information without the worry behind it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, not really a question, and I don't really expect an answer, but I would like everybody to go home thinking about it a little bit. Around 1860, a Chinese railroad worker wrote home extolling the beauty of America because there were no spirits in America. And my concern is cultural.
No, what no spirits?
No spirits. My concern is that we are heading into a world where we lose control because things have spirits. And even worse than the Chinese worldview, those spirits will be networked, and if we're lucky, will be controlled by maybe a dozen companies. So if anybody wants to comment on that, I'll be happy, but frankly, I don't expect any decent
Just to clarify, by spirits, you mean like the spiritual world,
Exactly. Something we can see, something we can control, something we don't understand. And I'm looking at this from the point of view of a human being, not really a technologist or a businessman.
Mm-hmm. So I think because it's 3:41, I want to maybe take one more question and do a lightning answer, and then we can wrap up. There's a, let's see who's most accessible. Maybe, sir, if you can just, we won't get the mic to you, if you can just speak loudly. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about security? I think that's the great Achilles heel here. There are going to be some huge problems.
Yeah. So let's do a lightning round there. Maybe a couple of words from each of our panelists. Maybe start with you, Frank.
I feel like we already addressed it. There's no easy answer, and we have to build in resiliency, and it's going to be messy for a long time.
Damien?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's you can add security by additional authentication that you push to the phone. You're never going to have the perfect hardware, especially in IoT, when you get billions and billions of devices. But if these can connect back to a device that has more security, then that's the way you go for it.
Yechiel, how long before someone gets assassinated because their medical device was hacked into? Let's spice things up here.
8.9 years.
8.9 years. But
It hasn't happened
right?
already? Come on. They already disconnected a vice president's pacemaker because they were worried about that.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think, Yechiel? What are your views on?
Look, I think I said it before. I mean, when security is not there is nothing new about security and how to handle data in a secure way. There are enough ways that we are aware today that we can try to protect data and we can protect the transfer of data between systems. Responsible companies are trying to do their best, and in some industries you do more than other industries. This is the basic answer. I mean, there is really it will never be perfect. It's just a matter of responsibility and making sure that we adhere for those.
Let me just say that I was talking to a utility, a power plant owner, and he says, we're not on the Internet of Things. So I asked him, do you have a computer is your thing controlled by a computer? The guy goes, yeah.
SCADA. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I goes, your computer on the Internet? He goes, yeah. So I go, you're on the Internet of Things, buddy. You don't know it, but the bad guys do. Okay? And
I have a scary story to close with, if you like.
Yeah. Scott is even more.
So,
it's good.
I was sharing a car with someone who was very recently inside the cybersecurity organization of the Office of the President. And he told me personally about a story that we have seen in the news, so you should be able to look it up. But they were confronted a couple of years ago with a question of whether to wake up the president, because the national security organizations, and I'm not sure exactly which one, had detected who they believe were national actors inside a dam. And they believed it was a dam in the West where there were tens of thousands of people downstream at risk. But the people staring at the data were saying, this stuff, something's wrong. It doesn't look quite right. And they finally realized the time zones were wrong. And they found an agricultural dam in Virginia, tiny little thing, just a couple of feet, that wasn't a harm to anyone, with the same name. And so these actors were inside the wrong dam. Well, hopefully they couldn't get in the big one, but they got in the little one. So they didn't wake up the president. So that's some of the stuff that's going on that we hear about.
So you could say,
but argue he should wake up for other things.
So you could say the president didn't give a damn.
about a few potato plants? No.
But I'll just tell you that 2 weeks ago, when the WannaCry ransomware took off, I didn't think there were anything. MIT wasn't affected, but I got a text as I was getting into a plane. We have a 3D printer in my lab, which is connected to a PC, and there popped up WannaCry. So our PC was held to ransom. Our 3D printer was held to ransom. Of course, this being MIT, my students said, you're not doing this to us. So they cut off the computer, installed a new computer, wiped the disk. We were fine. But we are in this world. It's an exciting world.
Right.
It's also a scary one. And I personally believe, and I think panelists have said this very eloquently, we've got to use it because it's going to transform business, but we're also open to abuse. So thank you very much. Really want to thank Yechiel and Damien.